Riders on the storm. Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown. Riders on the storm. The existential angst of Jim Morrison, who is the lead vocalist for The Doors, it really comes through in this song, which he released in 1971, which was the same year he died. There's truth here, though, that should not be overlooked, because we all look at life this way at one time or another. I've been thrown into this mess. It seems that we are simply thrown into this world at the whim of someone or something greater than ourselves. That feeling, which is common to all mankind, usually shows up in the midst of a storm. That type of storm, of course, is not the weather-related storm that we usually think of, but the situations in our life. Didn't you do a series one time called Storm Stories? Yeah, Gracie did one time. Storm Stories. Having people talk about their storms. When something in our life seems to go sideways, we often wonder what in the world is going on. It seems as if everything is coming undone for me. Ever been there? I have. The disciples found themselves in the midst of a weather-related storm, though, and they also felt their world was falling apart. We read in Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 38. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" Perishing? Had anyone been thrown overboard or drowned yet? Was anyone hurt? Not according to the story. When we go into a panic about our life, logic is not usually the first course we take. We tend to look at what could possibly be the end of the current situation and make that out to be the reality. Their reality was that they had probably been in storms at sea, and they knew the power which could be displayed. But the real problem, the thing that upset them the most, was the fact that Jesus was sleeping. What about you? Does it bother you when you are upset about something but no one else seems to be bothered? I have a friend who's terribly upset about the Hamas-Israeli situation that's going on right now. But her biggest gripe is that no one else seems to be as upset as she is. For Jesus, after all the work of ministry of that day, the storm-tossed boat probably felt like a nice rocking chair. However, there's something deeper here that allowed him to sleep in the midst of the storm, and it is something that we can each lay hold of. We know that storms of any kind are simply a part of life on this terrestrial ball. Jesus told us in John chapter 16 and verse 33, he said, "I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I've overcome the world." Let me ask you a question. Are you in the world? Yes, you are. And in the world you're going to have tribulation. Jesus knew that there was no escaping the fact of trials and tribulations. Storms, if you will. They're going to come in this lifetime. Once that fact is accepted into your consciousness, some of the trials might possibly become somewhat easier to bear. In that place, you would then become a rider on the storm, using the storm to propel you forward in your walk with God. You've probably all seen photos of the giant waves off of Australia or Hawaii. Those waves can be terrifying. Yet for someone who understands them, they will paddle right up to that thing and say, "Come on, big fella, let's get it on." Understanding is the key. The disciples had a major failure of understanding when they were caught in the storm, which Jesus used to get some rest. They woke him up trying to get him to become concerned with their plight. Not that he wasn't concerned, but it just wasn't anything to get upset about. Now, they had no idea what he would do next, but at least he should join them in their fright. Instead, Jesus got up and calmed the storm. And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Jesus fixed their immediate problem by calming the storm. That was just their immediate problem. It wasn't what caused them to have all this fear. He can fix our immediate problem by calming the storm that we're in the midst of. He can do it. We simply need to make known to him that we know what's going on. In my first place of ministry at the commune of the One Way House down in Pensacola, a heavy depression set in over the whole house. You could feel it. Joy was gone. I was up in the prayer room praying, and I knelt down by the window and I said, "Lord, what is the cause of this depression?" Immediately, the depression lifted. Within 3 minutes, there was singing and being heard in the house again. I had named the problem. Exposed it, if you will. The disciples did not name the cause of their problem. They named what they felt was the result of the problem, but the Lord helped them anyway. However, when the storm ceased, he scolded them for their lack of faith. He said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" Faith. I've heard many sermons about faith and how we can use faith to speak to the storm, to speak to the mountain, to speak to the devil, to speak to the problem, and call for its removal. There are a multitude of preachers and teachers trying to get folks to increase their faith so that they can accomplish these things. However, few people ever achieve that level of faith. What's missing? Where's the failure? Why can't we just speak to every little or big problem which confronts us and cause it to simply disappear? Why can't we? Let's consider that for a moment. Why was Jesus able to sleep in the middle of the storm? Let's not forget, he was fully human, encumbered with all the same emotions as any other human. As we read in Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 15, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin." He could have been tempted to freak out and panic, but he didn't because of something else. Why was he able to sleep in the middle of the storm? We usually say it was because of his faith. And that is partially true, but it's not accurate. I think we fail to realize the basis of that faith. In this particular instance, he had given the disciples a directive. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." Knowing that he was supposed to go to the other side of the lake, he went to sleep. When you know, you know. I was hired to photograph a wedding when I was out in California. The ceremony was to take place in an area where there was not much parking, so we had a gathering place where we were going to arrange our carpool situations. And I went with 3 other guys in a 1963 VW van. As it turned out, he had just bought that week. On the way down the mountain, the brakes gave out. Then the clutch gave out. We were speeding down the mountain. I remember going around a curve where a group of bicyclists had stopped to drink some water, and all of them, their eyes got big because this big machine is just flying down the mountain at them. There was nothing we could do but hope that John was a good driver. I never panicked. I saw a driveway off to the left that was going uphill, and I pointed it out to John. He took it, and we were aiming for the gate, knowing that we would crash right through it. But that was our goal, was to stop by going uphill. Now, this was a VW van, remember? And I was sitting in the front seat. In those vehicles, the only thing between you and the outside world is a thin sheet of metal. For a moment, it looked like he was going to pin me right in between the big metal post that supported the gate, but he didn't. When we came to a stop, John was shaking like a leaf. I mean, he took his hands off the wheel and he was shaking. I can understand that. One of the guys in the back asked me, though, he says, "Why weren't you afraid?" Because they were all screaming, hollering, doing all sorts of stuff. I was just sitting there holding my camera bag. "Why weren't you afraid?" I said, "Because I'm supposed to take pictures of Charlie and Liz at their wedding." For me, it was that simple. I had a destination which did not include a different destiny. Jesus had a destination which at this time was not a part of his ultimate destiny. Therefore, he was not bothered by the storm. It couldn't take his life because he knew it wasn't his time. Now, we discussed this in our Bible study last week, not this past Thursday, but the week before, asking if it were possible for us to know when it is our time to depart this world. The consensus was that yes, we can know, but it is not a requirement, nor is it something that we can strive for. It's not some particular skill that you can work at gaining. But when you know, you know. And when you know, you can ride out any storm that comes your way with a calm faith that just might be reassuring to those around you who do not yet have that confidence. Instead of being tossed about by the storm, become a rider of the storm, letting it propel you to a closer walk with God. Amen.